I asked my son Elijah, why didn't you invite me to your wedding? He looked at me and said, Mom, the wedding wasn't for you.
I asked my son Elijah, why didn't you invite me to your wedding? He looked at me, his eyes cold, and said, Mom, the wedding wasn't for you. It was only for the people who really matter to us. $167,000 I gave him, a lifetime of sacrifice, yet I wasn't important enough to be part of my own son's big day. How does a mother survive that kind of pain? What could be crueler than this betrayal? This is my story about love trampled, trust shattered, and a horrifying secret lurking behind the wedding doors. Welcome to Voices of Auntie Rose, where stories of family, forgiveness, resilience, and the courage to rise above betrayal come to life with heart and soul. We're so glad you're here, joining a community that celebrates the unbreakable human spirit. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story. And it would be amazing if you could like this video, share it, or drop a comment letting us know what time it is and which city or country you're watching from. Your shares and comments are the greatest gift, the powerful inspiration that keeps this channel growing and spreading meaningful life lessons every single day. Now, let's dive into today's story. I woke up at 5 in the morning on what should have been the happiest day of my life as a mother. The alarm hadn't even gone off yet, but my body knew. Something deep in my gut told me to be awake, to be ready, though I didn't know for what. At 77 years old, you learn to trust those instincts. I sat up in bed in my River Oaks home, the same house my late husband Robert and I had built our dreams in 35 years ago. Through the window, I could see the first hint of dawn touching the old oak trees in our backyard. Today was supposed to be perfect. Today, my only son Elijah was getting married. I walked slowly to my home office, my knees aching the way they always did these days. The room was exactly as I'd left it the night before, paperwork scattered across my desk from my real estate brokerage business. I'd built Rodriguez Properties from nothing after Robert died, pouring every ounce of grief and determination into creating something that would make him proud. It had worked. The business thrived, providing me with a comfortable retirement income that I'd been generous with. My eyes landed on the framed photo on my desk. Elijah at 8 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a fish we'd caught at Lake Conroe. That boy had been my entire world after Robert's heart attack took him from us. I dedicated every breath, every dollar, every moment to making sure Elijah never felt the absence of his father. Looking at that innocent face in the photo, I wondered when exactly he'd stopped being that sweet child who used to say, "Mama, you're my favorite person in the whole universe." I picked up another photo, this one more recent, from 2 years ago, Elijah and Madison at their engagement party. Madison Ellington, 27 years old, stunning in that calculated way that corporate attorneys always are. Her smile was perfect, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her eyes cold. Even in the photograph, even when she was supposedly happy, those eyes didn't match her smile. But what mother listens to those little warnings? What mother doesn't want to believe her son has found love? I'd spent the last 3 years trying to be the mother-in-law Madison never had. Her own mother had died of cancer when Madison was 19, and her father, federal Judge Harrison Ellington, was a cold, distant man, more interested in his judicial legacy than his daughter. I thought I could fill that void. I thought I could love her into our family. God, I'd been such a fool. I walked to my closet and pulled out the dress I'd bought for today, a beautiful dusty rose silk dress from Neiman Marcus, $400. I'd tried it on 3 times, wanting to look perfect in the wedding photos. Photos I would never appear in. My hands started shaking as the memory of yesterday afternoon flooded back. I'd called Elijah's cell phone around 3 o'clock, excited to confirm the final timeline for today's ceremony. We'd spent months planning this wedding. I'd given them $30,000 as a wedding gift 6 months ago, money from Robert's life insurance that I'd carefully saved for decades. They'd said they wanted something intimate, elegant, just 300 guests at our family estate. Madison had answered Elijah's phone. That should have been my first warning. "Hi, sweetheart," I'd said, my voice bright with maternal excitement. "I'm just calling to confirm what time I should be ready tomorrow. Should I arrive at noon to help you get dressed? Or..." "Oh, Simone." Her voice had been light, almost amused. "Didn't Elijah tell you? We got married yesterday. It was just a small ceremony at my father's estate in Dallas, very intimate. We only invited special people." The words had hit me like a physical blow. I actually stumbled backward, gripping the edge of my kitchen counter to stay upright. What? What do you mean you got married yesterday? Yesterday, October 19th, she'd repeated slowly, as if speaking to a child or someone very stupid. The wedding. It was beautiful. Judge Ellington officiated, of course. It was everything we wanted, small, elegant, meaningful. Just the people who really matter to us. My vision had blurred, but I'm Elijah's mother. We've been planning. Planning? Madison had laughed, actually laughed. Simone, honey, you've been planning a wedding. We planned our wedding. There's a difference. Surely you understand that, being in real estate. Sometimes what the buyer wants isn't what the seller is offering. She'd compared me to a rejected business proposal. My son's wedding, the most important day of his life, and I'd been cut out like a bad deal. Can I speak to Elijah, please? My voice had cracked, tears already streaming down my face. He's in the shower. Look, Simone, I have to go. We're heading to Turks and Caicos for our honeymoon, you know. The one you helped pay for. Thank you for that, by the way. The resort looks amazing. I'll have Elijah call you when we get back. Maybe in 2 weeks, we'll do dinner or something. She'd hung up before I could respond. I'd stood there in my kitchen for 20 minutes, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone, my entire body numb with shock. Then I'd gone on Facebook. God help me. I'd actually checked their social media like some pathetic stalker. The photos were all there. Madison in a stunning white Vera Wang gown, the $8,000 dress I'd seen the charge for on the credit card. I'd co-signed for them, thinking it was for today's wedding. Judge Ellington, standing proud next to his daughter. Madison's brother and sister raising champagne flutes. 30 or 40 guests, all Madison's family and friends from her law firm. Not a single person from Elijah's life. Not his childhood friends, not his uncle Marcus, not his godmother Patricia, and certainly not me. The caption under Madison's post had been the final knife in my heart. Married the love of my life, surrounded by the people who truly matter. Small weddings are so much more meaningful. Number, blessed number, intimate wedding number. Real love only. People who truly matter. I'd paid their rent for 3 years. $1,500 a month. That was $54,000 right there. I'd bought every piece of furniture in their townhouse in the Heights, another $12,000, because Madison said she wanted quality pieces that would last. I'd bought them a car when Elijah's old Honda died, co-signed for a $40,000 Tesla Model 3 that I was still making payments on because they had cash flow issues. I'd given Madison money for her student loans, $20,000, because she said the interest was killing them. I'd paid for their groceries every month through Instacart, at least $400 a month, which added up to another $14,000 over 3 years. I'd covered their medical bills, their insurance premiums, their vacation to Colorado last year, Madison's yoga retreat, Elijah's golf club membership. The number I'd calculated last night, sitting at my kitchen table with my old ledger and bank statements spread before me, had made me physically ill. $167,400. That was what I'd spent on them in 3 years. Money from Robert's life insurance. Money from my retirement account. Money I'd saved penny by penny through 40 years of hard work after Robert died. Money that was supposed to be for my old age, for my care, for maybe one day spoiling grandchildren. I'd given them everything. And they'd given me nothing. Not even the courtesy of being told about my own son's wedding. Now, standing in my bedroom at 5 in the morning, holding this useless $400 dress, I felt something crack inside my chest, not my heart that had broken yesterday. This was something else, something deeper and colder. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Elijah. Mom, sorry you found out that way. Madison was supposed to call you earlier. It just happened really fast. Spur of the moment thing. Hope you understand. We'll celebrate when we get back. Love you. Love you. 2 words that meant nothing when they came after this kind of betrayal. I sat down on my bed, still holding the dress, and the tears finally came. But they weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of rage. Pure, crystalline fury at my own stupidity, at their cruelty, at the 3 years I'd wasted trying to buy love that was never real. I cried for the woman I'd been, the generous, hopeful mother who believed her sacrifices would be appreciated. I cried for the relationship I'd thought I had with my son. I cried for every time I'd canceled my own plans to help them with their latest emergency, every time I'd eaten instant noodles for dinner so I could transfer them money for their wants, every time I'd ignored that little voice that whispered they're using you. When the tears finally stopped, I stood up and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. My eyes were swollen, my face blotchy and red, my silver hair disheveled. I looked like what I was, a 77-year-old woman who'd been played for a fool. But underneath the pain, something else was stirring. Something that had been dormant for too long. Strength, clarity, determination. I walked back to my office and opened my laptop. I pulled up my bank statements, my investment accounts, my records of every transfer I'd ever made to Elijah and Madison. I'd always been meticulous with financial records. Robert had taught me that. Then I did something I should have done 3 years ago. I called my older sister Rosa. Rosa answered on the second ring, her voice alert despite the early hour. My sister had always been an early riser, a habit from her 25 years as an FBI agent before retirement. Simone? It's 5:30 in the morning. What's wrong? Rosa, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I need your help, professional help. There was a pause. Then, in that calm, measured voice I remembered from childhood when Rosa would protect me from neighborhood bullies, tell me everything. So I did. I told her about the secret wedding, about the $167,000, about the texts and calls I'd started receiving just this morning, now that they were back from their one-night honeymoon in Galveston. Not Turks and Caicos, after all. That had been another lie, asking when I was going to transfer this month's rent money because they were running a little behind. When I finished, Rosa was silent for a long moment. Simone, she finally said, her voice tight with controlled anger. What they've done isn't just cruel, it's abuse. Elder financial abuse is a federal crime. And I think we need to find out exactly how deep this goes. What do you mean? I mean, Rosa said slowly, that people who are willing to cut their own mother out of a wedding after taking $167,000 from her are capable of other things too. Let me make some calls. I still have contacts from my FBI days. Don't transfer any money. Don't answer their calls. Just sit tight. I'll be there by noon. After we hung up, I sat in the growing daylight and thought about the son I'd raised, the boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and call them mama flowers, the teenager who'd cried in my arms when his first girlfriend broke his heart, the young man who'd sworn at Robert's funeral that he'd always take care of me. When had that person disappeared? Or had he ever really existed at all? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Madison, this time from her own number. Simone, the rent is due in 3 days. You forgot to transfer it. Also, the car payment is overdue. The dealership called. Please handle this today. Thanks. Not please with any real politeness. Not would you mind. Just a command. Handle this. As if I were her employee, not her mother-in-law. As if I were nothing. I looked at that text for a long time. Then I did something I'd never done before. I deleted it without responding. And in that small act of defiance, I felt the first stirrings of the woman I was about to become. The hours between Rosa's call and noon moved like molasses in winter. I tried to make myself coffee, but my hands shook so badly I spilled grounds all over the counter. I tried to eat a piece of toast, but it turned to sawdust in my mouth. My stomach churned with a nausea that had nothing to do with hunger, and everything to do with the betrayal still burning through my veins like acid. I kept checking my phone, watching the messages pile up. Madison, 9:15 a.m. Simone, did you see my text? The rent? Hello? Elijah, 9:47 a.m. Mom, Madison says you're not answering. Everything okay? Madison, 10:23 a.m. This is getting ridiculous. We have bills to pay. You know the landlord doesn't play around. Are you seriously going to let us get evicted over some hurt feelings? Hurt feelings. She'd reduced my exclusion from my only child's wedding to hurt feelings, like I was pouting over not being invited to a book club meeting. At 11 o'clock, my doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Elijah's Tesla, the one I was still paying $472 a month for parked in my driveway. My heart seized. Rosa wasn't here yet. I wasn't ready for this confrontation. But the doorbell rang again, insistent, demanding. I opened the door to find my son standing on my porch, and for a moment, my traitorous mother's heart leaped with hope. Maybe he'd come to apologize. Maybe he'd realized how cruel they'd been. Maybe. Mom, what the hell? Elijah pushed past me into my house without waiting for an invitation. Why are you ignoring our texts? We have a financial emergency here. He was 29 years old, my baby boy. But standing in my foyer in his expensive Nike athletic wear and Apple Watch, he looked like a stranger. When had his face become so hard? When had his eyes learned to look through me instead of at me? Elijah, I said quietly, closing the door, don't you think we need to talk about yesterday? He had the audacity to look confused. Yesterday? What about it? Your wedding, I said, and my voice cracked despite my best efforts. The wedding I knew nothing about. The wedding I wasn't invited to. He shrugged. Actually shrugged, like I'd mentioned a missed dentist appointment. Mom, it was a spontaneous thing. Very small. Madison's dad had a cancellation at his estate, and we just went for it. It wasn't personal. Not personal? The words came out as a whisper. Elijah, I'm your mother. I carried you for 9 months. I raised you alone after your father died. I gave up everything to make sure you had a good life. And you got married without even telling me? Oh, here we go. He rolled his eyes at me and walked into my living room, dropping onto the sofa I'd bought him 3 years ago when he first moved in with Madison. The martyr routine. I sacrificed everything. I gave up everything. Mom, nobody asked you to do that. That was your choice. The room tilted. I gripped the doorframe to stay upright, my vision swimming with black spots. My choice? You're my son. Of course I was going to help you. Help is one thing, he interrupted, pulling out his phone and scrolling through it as if this conversation bored him. But you act like we owe you our entire lives because you... What? Did your job as a parent? You're supposed to take care of your kids. That's basic parenting. You don't get a medal for it. Each word was a sledgehammer to my chest. I actually stumbled backward, catching myself against the wall. Is that really how you see it? Everything I've done, all the money I've given you. About that money, Elijah said, finally looking up from his phone, that's actually why I'm here. We need $1,500 for rent, $472 for the car payment, and Madison's discovered this amazing furniture store design within reach, you know it? Anyway, there's a dining set we want, $10,000, but it's exactly the aesthetic we're going for. Mid-century modern, very clean lines. You'd love it. I stared at him. He was asking me for over $11,000 as if he were ordering a pizza, as if yesterday hadn't happened, as if I hadn't just been cut from the most important day of his life. Elijah, I said slowly, carefully, because I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff and one wrong word would send me over. Do you have any idea how much money I've given you in the last 3 years? I don't know, Mom. I don't keep track. He went back to his phone. You're the real estate person. You're good with numbers. $167,400. The number hung in the air between us. That's how much. From Robert's life insurance, from my retirement, from the business I built with my bare hands after your father died. He looked up, and for just a second, I saw something flicker across his face. Shame? Guilt? But it vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. Okay. And? You have it. It's not like you're struggling. This house is paid off. You've got the business. You're doing fine. I'm 77 years old, Elijah. My voice rose despite myself, breaking with emotion. That money was supposed to be for my care when I get older, for medical bills, for... You're not even sick, he snapped, irritation creeping into his voice now. You're healthy as a horse. You'll probably live another 20 years. Why are you being so dramatic about this? The casual cruelty of it knocked the wind from my lungs. I sank into the armchair across from him, my legs finally giving out. Do you love me at all? The question escaped before I could stop it, small and broken and pathetic. Elijah sighed heavily, the put-upon sigh of someone dealing with an unreasonable child. Of course I love you, Mom. You're my mother. But love doesn't mean I have to invite you to everything or consult you about every decision. Madison and I are adults. We make our own choices. Adults who can't pay their own rent, I said quietly. His face darkened. You know what? Maybe if you hadn't spoiled me so much growing up, I'd be better with money. This is actually kind of your fault when you think about it. You never taught me financial responsibility because you just threw money at every problem. The sheer audacity of turning this around on me left me speechless. He was blaming me for his inability to support himself. Me, who'd worked 60-hour weeks to keep us afloat after Robert died. Me, who'd taught him to balance a checkbook at 12, who'd made him get a job at 16, who'd done everything right. Or had I? Looking at the entitled stranger on my sofa, I wondered if I'd actually done everything wrong. Elijah, I started, but he stood up abruptly. Look, I don't have time for this guilt trip. Madison's waiting in the car. Madison's here? I looked out the window and sure enough, there she was in the passenger seat of my Tesla, phone in hand, not even bothering to come inside. Yeah, we have brunch reservations at Bistro Manil in 20 minutes. So can you just zell us the money? We'll do dinner next week, okay? We'll bring takeout from that Thai place you like, and we can celebrate the wedding properly. Madison even said we could look at the wedding photos with you. How generous. How magnanimous. They'd allow me to see photos of the wedding I wasn't allowed to attend. Something inside me crystallized in that moment, cold and hard and unbreakable. No, I said. Elijah had been heading toward the door. He turned back, confused. No what? No, I'm not transferring the money. No to the rent, no to the car payment, no to the dining set, no to all of it. His face went from confused to shocked to angry in the span of a heartbeat. Are you serious right now? Mom, we have bills. You're 29 years old with a college degree from Rice University, I said, standing up and meeting his eyes. Madison is a corporate attorney who bills $300 an hour. You're both perfectly capable of paying your own bills. What is this? His voice rose. Some kind of punishment because you're mad about the wedding? This is so petty, Mom. So childish. Childish? The word came out as a harsh laugh. What's childish is a grown man who needs his 77-year-old mother to pay his rent. What's petty is excluding that same mother from your wedding and then showing up demanding money 3 days later. We didn't exclude you, he insisted, but his voice had taken on a desperate edge now. It was just small, intimate. Madison's family. Madison's family was there. I cut him off. Her father, her brother, her sister, her friends from work, 30 or 40 people. I saw the pictures on Facebook. His face flushed. You're stalking our social media now? That's creepy, Mom. I'm creepy? My voice was shaking now, but not with weakness, with rage. I'm creepy for checking my own son's Facebook page after finding out he got married without telling me? Do you hear yourself? Whatever, this is stupid. He pulled out his phone. I'm texting Madison to come in. Maybe she can talk some sense into you. Don't, I said sharply. Don't bring her into my house. But it was too late. Through the window, I saw Madison getting out of the car, her movements deliberate and feline. She walked up my front path like she owned it, let herself in without knocking, and surveyed my living room with those cold blue eyes. Simone, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I hear we're having a little misunderstanding. A little misunderstanding. I'd been written out of my son's life and she called it a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Madison, I said, forcing my voice to stay level. I understand perfectly. You wanted my money but not my presence. You wanted to fund your life, but not include me in it. I understand completely. Madison's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went from cold to glacial. Simone, honey, I think you're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. Elijah and I have built a life together, and yes, you've been very generous in helping us establish ourselves. But we're a married couple now. We need boundaries. Surely you can understand that? Boundaries? I repeated. Is that what you call taking $167,000 from me? For the first time, Madison's perfect composure cracked just slightly. That's a bit of an exaggeration, don't you think? I have the bank statements. I walked to my office and came back with my folder, slapping it down on the coffee table. Every transfer, every payment, every bill I've covered. It's all documented. $167,400 over 3 years. Elijah had gone pale. I don't think even he had realized how much it was. But Madison recovered quickly, her professional attorney mask sliding back into place. Well, she said smoothly, that was very generous of you. Consider it an early inheritance, a gift. Gifts don't require payback, Simone. They also don't require the giver to be treated like garbage, I shot back. Madison's eyes narrowed. Is that what you think? That we treat you like garbage? Simone, we invite you to dinner. We call you. We include you in our lives. When you need something, I interrupted, you include me when you need money, when you need a cosigner, when you need someone to subsidize your lifestyle. But when it came to something that actually mattered, your wedding, I wasn't special enough to be there. The words hung in the air, and I saw the moment Madison decided to drop the act. Her face hardened, all pretense of affection vanishing. You want the truth, Simone? She crossed her arms. Fine. The truth is you're exhausting, you're needy and clingy, and you act like every dollar you give us means we owe you our souls. The wedding was supposed to be our day, not another opportunity for you to play the martyr mother who sacrificed everything. We wanted one day that wasn't about your feelings. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. I actually pressed my hand to my chest, feeling my heart hammer against my ribs, each beat painful and irregular. The room swam. I couldn't breathe. Madison! Even Elijah looked shocked. That's too far. No, she needs to hear this, Madison continued, warming to her subject now. She needs to understand that we're not her emotional support animals. We're not here to fill the void Robert left. We're our own people with our own lives, and frankly, we're tired of walking on eggshells around her feelings all the time. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. The pain in my chest was radiating down my left arm now. Was this what a heart attack felt like? Baby, maybe we should. Elijah started, but Madison cut him off. The car's in both our names, right? And the apartment lease? She looked at Elijah, who nodded hesitantly. Then we're fine. We'll figure out the money ourselves. We don't need her. She looked back at me with something like triumph in her eyes. We never really did. But you were so desperate to be needed, we let you. That's on you, Simone. Then she walked out, heels clicking on my hardwood floors. Elijah stood there for a moment, looking torn. Mom, she didn't mean. Get out, I whispered. Mom, get out of my house. The scream tore from my throat, raw and primal, and Elijah actually flinched. He left without another word. I stood in my living room, surrounded by the furniture I'd bought them, in the house I'd maintained alone for 30 years, and collapsed. Simply folded in on myself like a house of cards, sliding down onto the floor, my back against the wall. The pain in my chest was unbearable. Each breath felt like broken glass. I fumbled for my phone with shaking hands, but I couldn't make my fingers work properly to dial. That's where Rosa found me 10 minutes later, crumpled on the floor, tears streaming down my face, making sounds I didn't recognize as coming from my own throat. Simone, she dropped to her knees beside me. Are you hurt? Should I call 911? I shook my head, but I couldn't form words. Rosa held me while I shattered, while 30 years of widowhood and 3 years of exploitation and 1 moment of absolute cruelty broke me apart. When I could finally breathe again, when the chest pain had subsided to a dull ache, I looked up at my sister. She said I was never needed, I whispered. That they just let me give them money because I was desperate to be needed. Rosa's face hardened into something frightening. Then it's time, she said quietly, to show them exactly what happens when you abuse someone's love. And Simone, it's not going to be pretty. Rosa helped me off the floor and guided me to the kitchen table, her FBI training evident in the way she assessed me, checking my pulse, looking at my eyes, asking quiet questions about the chest pain. When she was satisfied I wasn't having a heart attack, just a broken one, she made me tea I didn't ask for and sat across from me with a expression I'd seen before. It was the look she'd worn when we were children and someone had bullied me at school. The look that said someone was about to pay. Tell me everything that just happened, she said, pulling out a small notebook. Every word they said, every detail you remember. So I did. I recounted the entire conversation with Elijah, every dismissive comment, every casual cruelty. When I got to Madison's final speech, Rosa's pen actually snapped in her hand. That vindictive little she caught herself, taking a deep breath. Okay. This is actually good, Simone. I know it doesn't feel good, but they just showed you exactly who they are. No more wondering, no more hoping you misunderstood. They revealed themselves completely. Rosa, I don't want revenge, I said tiredly, my voice hoarse from crying. I just want them to leave me alone. I'll cut off the money and— Simone. Rosa reached across the table and gripped my hand. It's not about revenge. It's about protection. Because people like Madison and Elijah, they don't just walk away when the money stops. They escalate. What do you mean? Rosa opened her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I made those calls this morning. I have a friend at the Houston FBI field office, another in the financial crimes unit. I asked them to do a preliminary background check on Madison Ellington. My stomach dropped. And your daughter-in-law is not who she claims to be. Rosa turned the screen toward me. Madison works at Sterling & Associates, right? Big corporate law firm downtown? Yes, she's a junior partner. She bills $300 an hour, or so she told me. She's not a partner. She's a third-year associate, and according to my contact who knows someone at that firm, she's on thin ice. Rosa pulled up what looked like an internal memo. There have been complaints. Expense reports that don't add up. Client charges that seem inflated. Nothing proven yet, but the managing partners have been watching her. I felt cold all over. You think she's stealing? I think she's living beyond her means and finding creative ways to fund it. Rosa clicked to another document. She drives a Mercedes C-Class, right? The white one she was sitting in outside? I nodded, remembering the sleek sedan I'd seen through my window. That car costs $65,000. Her salary as a third-year associate is $90,000 a year. After taxes, she's taking home maybe $60,000. The apartment you're paying rent for? It's $2,500 a month, not $1,500. The number hit me like a slap. What? They've been lying about the rent from the beginning, Rosa said grimly. The landlord's records show $2,500 a month. They've been pocketing the extra $1,000 every month for 3 years. That's $36,000 they stole from you through a simple lie. The nausea came back, stronger this time. I pushed away from the table and barely made it to the kitchen sink before I was sick, my body rejecting everything, the tea, the betrayal, the sheer magnitude of the deception. Rosa was beside me immediately, holding my hair back like she used to when we were children, and I'd gotten food poisoning. I'm sorry, she murmured. I know this is hard. But you need to know everything. When I could stand again, I rinsed my mouth and turned to face her. There's more, isn't there? Simone, sit down. Just tell me, Rosa. Please. Whatever it is. Just tell me. Rosa's face was a mix of anger and pity. I ran Elijah's financials too. He doesn't just have the one car loan you're paying. He has 3 credit cards you don't know about, maxed out to a total of $48,000. He has a personal loan from a predatory lender, $12,000 at 29% interest. And he's been gambling online. Not just a little bit. We're talking thousands of dollars a week on sports betting sites. The kitchen tilted. I gripped the counter to stay upright. No. Elijah wouldn't. The IP address traces back to his apartment. The credit card he used to set up the accounts is one you co-signed for 2 years ago, the one he said he needed for business expenses. Rosa's voice was gentle but relentless. Simone, your son has a gambling problem. A serious one, and Madison knows. In fact, I found text messages between them. My contact at the FBI has ways of accessing these things where she's encouraging it. Encouraging it? Why would she? Because every dollar Elijah loses gambling is another dollar he needs from you. And Madison's been taking that money and hiding it in accounts you don't know about. Rosa pulled up a bank statement. This is an account at Chase Bank opened 8 months ago in Madison's name only. It has $93,000 in it. I stared at the number on the screen. $93,000. While they'd been crying poverty to me, claiming they couldn't afford basic necessities, Madison had been stockpiling nearly 6 figures. Where did she get that money? I whispered. From you. But also from other sources. Rosa clicked to another screen. I think she's been embezzling from her law firm. Small amounts, spread out over time, hard to track unless you know what to look for. But my friend in financial crimes recognized the pattern. Fake invoices from shell companies, inflated expense reports, phantom consulting fees. She's a criminal. The words felt unreal coming out of my mouth. My son married a criminal. Your son might be complicit, Rosa said quietly. Some of those fake invoices? They're for IT consulting from a company registered to Elijah. A company that doesn't actually do anything except receive money that Madison funnels from her firm. The room was spinning now. I sat down hard in the kitchen chair, my head in my hands. I gave him everything. I raised him right. Robert and I, we taught him values, integrity, honesty. How did this happen? How did he become this? I don't know, sis. Rosa moved her chair closer, putting an arm around my shoulders. But I do know this isn't your fault. You were a good mother. You are a good mother. Some people just... She trailed off, searching for words. Some people have something broken inside them that no amount of love can fix. We sat in silence for a moment, Rosa holding me while I processed the full scope of the betrayal. It wasn't just exclusion from a wedding. It wasn't just taking advantage of my generosity. It was systematic, calculated theft and fraud, carried out over years by the two people who were supposed to love me most. There's one more thing, Rosa said finally. And this is the part that made me drive 90 miles an hour to get here. I looked up at her, not sure I could handle one more revelation. I found evidence that they've been in contact with an estate planning attorney. Not for their own estate, for yours. Rosa pulled out printed emails. They've been inquiring about power of attorney, about guardianship proceedings, about what it would take to have you declared mentally incompetent. The breath left my lungs in a rush. They want to have me declared insane? They want control of your assets while you're still alive. Your house is worth what, about $900,000 in this market. Your retirement accounts, your business equity, your investments, you're worth over $2 million, Simone, and they want all of it. $2 million. I'd never really thought about my net worth as a single number before. Robert's life insurance, 40 years of working and saving, the business I'd built, the house that had appreciated in value, it had all just been my life, my security, my future, and my son and his wife were plotting to steal it all. What? My voice came out as a croak. I cleared my throat and tried again. What do I do? Rosa's expression shifted from sympathetic to coldly professional. We fight back. Hard. But Simone, you need to understand once we start this, there's no going back. This ends your relationship with Elijah, probably permanently. Are you ready for that? I thought about the little boy in the photograph on my desk, the gap-toothed smile, the fishing rod, the pure love in his eyes. Then I thought about the stranger who'd stood in my living room an hour ago, dismissing 30 years of my sacrifices as just parenting, treating me like an ATM with an annoying emotional attachment. That little boy was already gone. Maybe he'd been gone for years, and I'd just been too desperate to see it. I'm ready, I said. Tell me what we need to do. Rosa smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd just caught the scent of prey. First, we document everything. Every text, every email, every phone call from this point forward. You don't delete anything. You don't respond to anything without running it by me first. Okay. Second, we secure your assets. Tomorrow morning, first thing, you're going to the bank. You're canceling every automatic transfer, every joint account, every co-signed loan. You're removing Elijah from your emergency contacts, your medical power of attorney, everything. The thought of it hurt, but I nodded. Third, we go on offense. Rosa's eyes glinted. Madison's embezzling from her law firm. That's a federal crime. Wire fraud, mail fraud, probably tax evasion too. I'm going to build a case so airtight that the FBI will be knocking on her door within a month. And Elijah? Rosa's expression softened slightly. That's up to you. He's involved, but he might just be weak and stupid rather than malicious. If you want to give him one chance to come clean, to turn on Madison and try to make this right, we can do that. But Simone, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that he'll choose her. I already knew he would. He'd made that choice when he married her in secret. He'd made it every time he'd lied about rent, every time he'd gambled away money I'd given him for bills, every time he'd stood by while Madison treated me with contempt. No chances, I said, my voice stronger now. I gave him 29 years of chances. I'm done. Rosa squeezed my shoulder. Then we're going to war. And Simone, we're going to win. My phone buzzed on the table. Another text from Madison. Simone, Elijah is very upset. You've hurt him deeply with your accusations and your refusal to support us anymore. We're prepared to take legal action if you continue this harassment. We have rights as your family, and we won't hesitate to pursue guardianship if you're truly becoming mentally unstable. Get help before it's too late. You've made it this far, go ahead and hit like to let me know you're still with me. You know, every share you make might help someone out there find a little hope. And before we continue, don't forget to subscribe because who knows, the next story might just touch your heart. The threat was barely veiled. Shape up and keep funding us, or we'll have you declared incompetent and take everything. I showed the text to Rosa, who photographed it with her phone. Perfect, she said. Keep them coming, Madison. Every threat is more evidence. I looked at my sister, at her determined expression, at the stack of documents she'd compiled in just a few hours. Then I looked around my kitchen, the kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals for my son, where I'd bandaged his scraped knees and helped with homework and listened to his dreams. All of it had led to this moment, to a war I never wanted with a child I'd loved more than my own life. But if it was war they wanted, they'd pick the wrong woman to underestimate. At 77 years old, I'd survived the death of my husband, built a business from nothing, and raised a son alone through sheer determination and love. That love had been weaponized against me, but the determination? That was all mine, and they were about to learn exactly what a woman with nothing left to lose could do. Let's burn it all down, I said to Rosa. My sister smiled. Now you're talking. The next morning, I woke before dawn again, but this time it wasn't grief or confusion that pulled me from sleep. It was purpose. Cold, crystalline purpose that felt like armor settling over my wounded heart. Rosa had stayed the night, sleeping in the guest room she'd used countless times over the years. We'd spent hours the previous evening going through every document, every bank statement, every text message. She'd set up a secure cloud backup for everything, changed all my passwords, and made me memorize a new PIN for my phone. From this point forward, she'd told me, "You assume they're watching everything. Don't say anything on the phone you wouldn't want played in court. Don't write anything in an email you wouldn't want a jury to read." Now, at 5:30 in the morning, I found her already awake in my kitchen, 3 laptops open on the table, papers spread everywhere. She looked up when I entered, her reading glasses perched on her nose. "Good, you're up. We have a lot to do today." She pushed a mug of coffee toward me. "First stop is Wells Fargo at 9 a.m. when they open. I've already made an appointment with the branch manager. Then we're going to see a lawyer, not just any lawyer, the best estate and elder law attorney in Houston. His name is Bernard Chen, former federal prosecutor, specializes in financial abuse cases." I sipped the coffee, feeling its warmth spread through my chest. How much is this going to cost? Don't worry about that right now. Chen owes me a favor from my FBI days. He'll see you as a courtesy. Rosa looked at me over her glasses. "But Simone, I need to prepare you for what's about to happen. The minute you start canceling those transfers and loans, Elijah and Madison are going to lose their minds. They're going to call, text, show up here. It's going to get ugly." "I know." "No, I don't think you do." Rosa closed her laptops and gave me her full attention. "These people have been living off you for 3 years. You're not just their mother, you're their income source. When you cut that off, they're going to panic. And desperate people do desperate things." A knock at my front door made us both jump. We looked at each other, then at the clock. 6 a.m. Who would be here at 6 in the morning? Rosa stood, her hand instinctively going to her hip where she used to carry her service weapon. "Old habits. Stay here. I'll check." She went to the door and peered through the peephole, then turned back to me with a grim expression. "It's Elijah. And he looks rough." My first instinct was to hide, to pretend I wasn't home. But Rosa shook her head. "He probably saw your lights on. And Simone, this might be good. Let's see what he has to say when Madison isn't here to control him." She opened the door. Elijah looked terrible. His hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot and rimmed with red. He was still wearing the same Nike clothes from yesterday, now rumpled and stained. When he saw me standing behind Rosa in my bathrobe, something in his face crumpled. "Mom," he said, and his voice broke. "Mom, please, can we talk?" Rosa stepped aside but didn't leave. She positioned herself near the doorway, arms crossed, watching him like a hawk. Elijah stumbled into my living room and sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. "I didn't sleep all night. Madison and I. We had a huge fight after we left here yesterday. She said things Terrible things, and He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe that my son had finally seen the light, that he was here to apologize genuinely, to make things right. But Rosa's warnings echoed in my head, and I stayed standing, keeping distance between us. Sorry for what, Elijah? I asked quietly. For the wedding? For the lies about rent? For taking $167,000 from me? Which part are you sorry for? He flinched at each item like I was hitting him. All of it. Everything. You're right, okay? You're right, Madison and I. We've been using you. I've been using you, and I hate myself for it. Then why did you do it? The question came out sharper than I intended. Why, Elijah? I loved you. I would have given you anything you asked for honestly. Why did you have to lie? Because it was never enough. The words exploded out of him. Don't you see? No matter how much you gave, Madison always needed more. The apartment wasn't nice enough, the furniture wasn't right, the car wasn't good enough. Nothing was ever enough for her. Then get a better job, Rosa interjected coldly. Work harder. Live within your means. You know, like adults. Elijah turned to her, his face desperate. You don't understand what she's like. Madison comes from money. Real money. Her father, her whole family. They expect a certain lifestyle. I couldn't give her that on my salary, and she made me feel like I was failing her every day. So you decided to fail your mother instead? I asked. The silence that followed was devastating. Elijah's face crumpled again, fresh tears flowing. I know how it sounds. But Mom, I'm trapped. I'm in so much debt, and Madison, she has this way of making me feel like everything is my fault, like I'm the problem, and the only way to fix it is to do what she says. Rosa pulled out her phone and started taking notes. Elijah was too distraught to notice. How much debt? I asked, even though Rosa had already told me the number. I wanted to hear him say it. About $60,000, he whispered. Credit cards, personal loans, and I have a problem, Mom. A gambling problem. Madison kept saying I could win it back, that I was just having a bad streak, that if I kept playing I'd hit big and solve everything, but I never won. I just lost more and more. So Madison had been encouraging his gambling. Rosa had been right about that too. And the rent? I pressed. The real rent that you lied about? Elijah's face went white. How did you? He looked at Rosa, then back at me. Madison said you'd never find out. She said the landlord wouldn't tell anyone. The landlord didn't have to tell me, Rosa said coolly. Public records are wonderful things. You've been stealing an extra $1,000 a month from your mother for 3 years. That's $36,000 in fraud, Elijah. That's a crime. I didn't want to. His voice rose, panicked now. Madison handled all the money. She said we needed it for other bills, that we were entitled to it because you had so much. She made it sound reasonable, like we were just evening things out. I sat down slowly in the armchair, my legs weak. Did she make the wedding sound reasonable too? Excluding me from the most important day of your life? Elijah buried his face in his hands again. That was all her. I swear, Mom, I wanted you there. But Madison said if we invited you, we'd have to invite all these other people, and it would get too big, too expensive. And her father offered to pay for everything if we kept it small and at his estate. I was weak. I went along with it because it was easier than fighting with her. You chose a free wedding over your mother, I said flatly. I know. He looked at me with such anguish I almost weakened. Almost. I know, and I hate myself for it. But Mom, please help me. I need to get away from her, but I can't afford to leave. The apartment lease is in both our names, the car loan, everything. If I leave, she'll destroy me financially. And she's threatening worse. Worse how? Rosa's pen was poised over her notepad. Elijah hesitated, looking between us. Then, as if a dam had broken, the words poured out. She's been embezzling from her law firm. I didn't know at first, I swear. But about 6 months ago, she told me what she'd been doing. She said I was part of it now because she'd been funneling money through that fake IT company in my name, If she goes down, I go down with her. Rosa and I exchanged a look. This was even worse than we'd thought. Madison hadn't just been stealing, she'd been setting up Elijah to take the fall. How much has she stolen? I asked. I don't know exactly. Maybe 200,000? Maybe more? Elijah's hands were shaking now. Mom, if her firm finds out, if anyone reports it, I could go to prison. She said she's been careful, but yesterday after we left here, she told me she has a backup plan. She said if you cut us off completely, we'd have to accelerate our timeline. Timeline for what? Rosa's voice was sharp. Elijah looked at the floor, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. She's been researching how to have you declared incompetent. She found a doctor who'd be willing to testify that you're showing signs of dementia, that you need a guardian. She said once we had control of your money, we could pay off all our debts and start over somewhere else. Probably Austin or Dallas. The room went silent except for the sound of Rosa's pen scratching across paper. I felt strangely calm. Maybe it was because Rosa had already told me about this plan, so it wasn't a shock. Or maybe I'd finally reached the bottom of the pit of betrayal and there was nowhere left to fall. And you were going to go along with this? I asked my son. You were going to have your own mother declared mentally ill, take control of her money, and leave her what? In some nursing home? No. Elijah looked up, horrified. No, Mom. That's when I realized I couldn't do it anymore. Yesterday, when Madison laid out the whole plan, something inside me just broke. That's why we fought. I told her I wouldn't do it, that I couldn't betray you like that. She said I was weak, that I was choosing you over our marriage, over our future. She gave me an ultimatum: go along with the plan, or she'd make sure I went to prison for the embezzlement. He was sobbing now, his whole body shaking. So I left. I'd been driving around all night trying to figure out what to do, and I realized I have to come clean. I have to tell you everything, even if you hate me, even if I go to prison. I can't do this anymore. Rosa looked at me, one eyebrow raised. The question was clear. Do you believe him? I studied my son, my baby, now 29 years old, broken and crying on my couch. Part of me wanted to run to him, to hold him like I had when he was small and frightened. But another part of me, the part that Rosa had helped crystallize into steel, knew that love without boundaries was just another word for exploitation. Elijah, I said slowly, if you're telling the truth, if you really want to make this right, then you're going to have to prove it. He looked up at me with desperate hope. Anything. I'll do anything. You're going to help us build a case against Madison, Rosa said, stepping forward. You're going to turn over every document, every email, every text message. You're going to testify about the embezzlement, about the fraud, about the plans to have your mother declared incompetent. You're going to cooperate fully with the FBI investigation I'm about to launch. FBI? The blood drained from Elijah's face. But I'll go to prison too. Maybe, Rosa said bluntly. Or maybe, if you cooperate fully, if you show genuine remorse and help us catch a bigger fish, the prosecutor will offer you a deal. But Elijah, you need to understand there are consequences for what you've done. Real consequences. Your mother isn't going to save you from those. He looked at me, and I saw the little boy again, the one who used to run to me when he'd done something wrong, certain that Mama would fix everything. But I wasn't fixing this. I couldn't. Not anymore. You have a choice, I told him. You can go back to Madison, continue with her plan, and eventually end up in federal prison when her scheme falls apart, and it will fall apart. Or you can choose right now to be the man your father and I raised you to be. Own your mistakes. Face the consequences. Start rebuilding your life on a foundation of truth instead of lies. Elijah stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. I'll do it, he whispered. I'll tell you everything. Rosa pulled out her phone and started recording. Then, let's begin. For the next 3 hours, my living room became an interrogation chamber. Rosa sat across from Elijah with her phone recording every word, her old FBI training evident in the way she asked questions, precise, relentless, circling back to catch inconsistencies. I sat in the corner, a silent witness to the systematic destruction of every illusion I'd held about my son's life. Start with the IT company, Rosa said. When was it formed and whose idea was it? Elijah's voice was hoarse from crying, but he pushed through. February of last year. Madison said we needed another income stream, something that looked legitimate on paper. She registered it in my name, Rodriguez Tech Solutions, because she said having it in her name would raise flags at her law firm. But the company doesn't actually provide any services? No, it exists only to receive payments. Madison would create fake invoices from the company to her firm, claiming IT consulting work that never happened. Then the money would go into a business account she controlled. Rosa typed notes on her laptop. How much total? Around $230,000 over 18 months. The number made me flinch. She'd withdraw cash in small amounts to avoid triggering bank reports, then deposit it into various accounts. Some went to her personal account. Some paid off her credit cards. Some she just kept as cash in a safe deposit box I'm not even supposed to know about. Where's the safe deposit box? Chase Bank on Westheimer. Box number 473. The key is in her jewelry box at the apartment, hidden inside a fake Tiffany earring case. Rosa's eyes gleamed. This was evidence. Concrete, traceable evidence. What else is in that safe deposit box? Elijah rubbed his face. Cash. At least $80,000 in hundreds. Jewelry she bought with stolen money. And documents, copies of falsified invoices, the real financial records she kept separate from what she shows me. She's paranoid about having backup proof in case anyone tries to blame everything on her. Smart, Rosa said without admiration. Stupid criminals don't keep records. Cunning ones make sure they have insurance. What else? Tell me about the gambling. This was where Elijah looked most ashamed. He couldn't meet my eyes. It started small. March Madness last year. Madison had this app on her phone for betting, and she showed me how easy it was. Said her law school friends all did it, that it was just fun. I won $300 my first bet. And then you lost, Rosa prompted. Then I lost. A lot. But Madison kept saying I'd hit a winning streak eventually. She'd give me money to keep betting, saying it was an investment. When I wanted to stop, she'd get angry, say I was giving up too easily, that I was being weak like always. His voice cracked. She made me feel like the gambling debt was my fault, my failure, but the whole time she was encouraging it because every dollar I lost was another dollar she could justify taking from you, Mom. I finally spoke, my voice barely above a whisper. Did you ever actually want to stop? Elijah looked at me, and I saw the truth in his eyes before he said it. Not as much as I should have. It felt good, Mom. In those moments when I was betting, when I thought I might win big, I felt like I was in control of something. Everything else in my life was Madison telling me what to do, where to go, who to be. But the gambling was mine. Until you lost everything and came crying to me for money, I said. He nodded miserably. Every time. Rosa steered the conversation back. Tell me about the guardianship plan. How far along was it? She'd already contacted 3 attorneys to consult about the process. She told them you were showing signs of confusion, that you'd been making irrational financial decisions, that the family was concerned. 2 of them said it would be hard to prove without medical evidence. The third one, a guy named Fisher, he said if we could get testimony from a doctor and show a pattern of erratic behavior, we might have a case. And the doctor? Dr. Lehman. Some psychiatrist Madison found through her law firm connections. She met with him twice, coaching him on what to look for, what questions to ask. The plan was to get you to agree to an evaluation, then have him testify that you were mentally declining. Rosa looked at me. The text Madison sent yesterday about you needing help before it's too late, that was her setting up the narrative. She's been setting it up for weeks, Elijah confirmed. Every time she talks to anyone about you, she drops little comments. Simone's been so forgetful lately. We're worried about her living alone. She gets confused about money. She's been building a case in people's minds before there even was a case. The calculated nature of it took my breath away. Madison hadn't just stolen money, she'd been systematically destroying my reputation as a competent adult, laying groundwork for a legal attack that would strip me of my autonomy, my dignity, my freedom. When was she planning to file? Rosa asked. This week, actually. Elijah's voice dropped. She'd already drafted the petition. She was waiting for one more incident, something she could point to as proof you were unstable. That's why she was so cruel yesterday. She was trying to provoke you into doing something she could use against you. I thought back to the confrontation, to Madison's vicious words. She'd wanted me to lose control, to scream, to do something that could be painted as unhinged behavior. But I'd held it together barely. But I had. And after she got guardianship? Rosa pressed. What was the plan? Move you into a memory care facility. Madison had already researched places. Nothing terrible, she said. We needed it to look like we were taking good care of you. But once you were there, once she controlled all the money, Elijah's voice broke again. She talked about it like you'd already be gone, like putting you in a home was basically the same as you being dead. I felt that pain in my chest again, sharp and crushing. My daughter-in-law had been planning to bury me alive in a nursing home, warehouse me with dementia patients I didn't belong with, strip me of everything I'd worked for, all while pretending it was for my own good. Mom, I'm so sorry. Elijah was crying again. I should have stopped her months ago. I should have told you. I should have. But you didn't, I interrupted quietly. You didn't stop her. You didn't tell me. You went along with every lie, every theft, every plan. So tell me, Elijah, when exactly did you develop this conscience? Yesterday when I refused to pay your rent? Or this morning when you realized the money was actually gone? He flinched like I'd struck him. That's not fair. Fair? The word came out sharp enough to cut. You want to talk about fair? I lost your father when you were 6 years old. I worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. I put you through Rice University $60,000 a year for 4 years. I co-signed your first apartment lease when no one else would. I gave you your father's car when you graduated. I've given you everything, including the last 3 years of financial support that you repaid by plotting to have me declared insane. I know. And now you're here, crying and apologizing, and I want to believe you. God, Elijah, I want so badly to believe this is real remorse and not just fear of consequences. My voice broke. But how do I know? How do I trust anything you say after 3 years of lies? The silence stretched between us, heavy with grief and broken trust. Finally, Rosa spoke. He proves it. Elijah, you're going to wear a wire. Both Elijah and I looked at her in shock. A wire? Elijah repeated. You're going to go back to Madison, pretend this conversation never happened, and you're going to record everything. Rosa's voice was all business now. You're going to get her to talk about the embezzlement, the guardianship plan, all of it, on tape, with enough detail that the FBI can't ignore it. She'll know something's wrong, Elijah protested. Madison's too smart. Then be smarter, Rosa cut him off. Tell her you came here to do damage control, that you convinced Simone to keep paying the rent, that everything's fine. Then tell her you're nervous about the guardianship plan, that you want her to walk you through it again. Make her feel superior, like she's educating you. Madison's ego is her weakness, use it. Elijah looked terrified. What if she finds the wire? What if— Then you'll be exposed, and you'll lose your chance at a plea deal, Rosa said bluntly. But that's the risk you take when you decide to do the right thing after doing wrong for so long. Welcome to consequences, Elijah. He looked at me, searching my face for— What? Permission? Forgiveness? Some sign that I still loved him despite everything? I didn't know what my face showed. I felt numb, hollowed out, like someone had scooped out my insides and left only a shell. If you do this, I said slowly, if you wear the wire and get evidence against Madison, it doesn't erase what you've done. You'll still face consequences. You'll still have to answer for your part in all of this. I know. And it doesn't mean we're okay. It doesn't mean I forgive you. It just means— It means you're choosing to stop digging the hole deeper. Elijah nodded, fresh tears spilling down his cheeks. I understand. Rosa pulled out her phone. I'm calling my contact at the FBI Houston field office. They'll want to move fast on this. If Madison's planning to file guardianship papers this week, we're on a tight timeline. She looked at Elijah. You up for this? He took a shaky breath. What choice do I have? You always have a choice, I said, my voice harder than I meant it to be. That's what you've never understood. Every lie you told, every dollar you stole, every time you let Madison treat me like garbage, those were choices. You chose her over me, over integrity, over basic human decency. So, don't act like you're some helpless victim in all this. You're right. Elijah stood up, wiping his eyes. You're absolutely right. And I'm choosing now to try to make it right, even if it's too late. Even if you never forgive me, I have to try. Rosa was already on her phone, speaking in low, urgent tones to someone. I heard phrases like wire fraud, elder abuse, and cooperating witness. I walked to the window and looked out at my garden, At the azalea bushes I'd planted when Elijah was 10. Robert and I had chosen them together, pink ones because they were my favorite. Every spring they bloomed, faithful and beautiful, marking the passage of time. How many springs had passed since I'd truly been happy? Since I'd felt secure in my son's love instead of constantly anxious about his next request for money? Agent Morrison can meet us at the field office in 2 hours, Rosa announced, hanging up. Elijah, you're going to give a full statement, then they'll fit you with the recording device. You'll go back to Madison tonight. Tonight? Elijah's voice was panicked. I can't. I need time to… You don't have time, Rosa interrupted. Every hour we wait is another hour Madison has to cover her tracks or accelerate her plans. This happens today. I turned from the window to look at my son. He looked small and frightened, nothing like the confident young man I'd raised, or thought I'd raised. Elijah, I said, do you remember when you were 8 and you stole $20 from my purse? He looked confused by the question. Yeah? You felt so guilty you couldn't sleep. You came to me at 2 a.m. crying and confessed everything. You said lying made your stomach hurt. I paused. What happened to that boy? Elijah's face crumpled. I don't know, Mom. I honestly don't know. Find him, I said quietly, before it's too late. Find that boy who knew right from wrong, who had a conscience that kept him up at night. Because this version of you? I gestured at him. I don't recognize this person at all. Rosa touched my shoulder gently. We should go. The sooner we get this started, the sooner we can end this nightmare. As they headed for the door, Elijah paused and turned back to me. Mom? Even if you never forgive me, thank you for giving me this chance. I didn't respond. I wasn't sure I had given him a chance so much as Rosa had strategically deployed him as a weapon against Madison. After they left, I sank onto my couch and finally let myself fall apart completely. I don't know how long I sat there after they left. The house felt cavernous and empty, every corner echoing with memories that now felt poisoned. The couch where Elijah used to curl up watching Saturday morning cartoons bought with money he later helped steal from me. The dining table where we'd celebrated his college graduation refinished with funds I'd given him for emergency car repairs that never happened. Even the air itself seemed contaminated with betrayal. My phone rang. Madison. I let it go to voicemail, then listened with a kind of detached fascination to her message. Simone, this silent treatment is childish. Elijah came by earlier. He's very upset about your behavior yesterday. We've decided to give you some space to cool down, but we need that rent money by Friday or we're getting evicted. I'm sure you don't want that on your conscience. Also, I've scheduled an appointment for you with Dr. Lehman next Tuesday at 2 p.m. He's a wonderful psychiatrist who specializes in geriatric mental health. I think you'll find talking to him very helpful. Let me know if you need me to drive you. The audacity was breathtaking. She was still pushing forward with the plan, still trying to maneuver me into the evaluation that would be used against me in court. And she'd couched it in language that sounded concerned, loving even, so that if I refused, I'd look paranoid and unstable. I saved the voicemail. Evidence. Then I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I made myself a proper breakfast. Scrambled eggs with cheese, toast with real butter, fresh fruit, coffee in my favorite mug instead of whatever random cup was clean. I sat at my kitchen table and ate slowly, tasting every bite, reminding myself that I was still here, still alive, still capable of basic self-care despite my children's best efforts to convince me otherwise. My phone buzzed with a text from Rosa. At FBI field office. E-giving statement. Agent Morrison impressed with amount of detail. This is going to work. How are you holding up? I typed back. I made eggs. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, good. That's good. Keep doing small things. Don't think too far ahead. Just get through today. Sound advice from someone who'd survived 25 years of federal law enforcement. Just get through today. My doorbell rang again. Through the window I could see my neighbor Eleanor Brooks, the woman Rosa had mentioned yesterday. We'd lived next door to each other for 15 years but had barely exchanged more than pleasantries. She was holding a covered dish. I opened the door cautiously. Mrs. Rodriguez, Eleanor said, her kind face creased with concern. I hope I'm not intruding. I heard raised voices yesterday, not eavesdropping, mind you, but the windows were open and I wanted to check that everything's all right. I brought you some chicken soup, homemade. The simple kindness of it nearly broke me all over again. Here was a virtual stranger showing more care for my well-being than my own son had in years. Thank you, I managed, taking the warm dish. That's very thoughtful. Would you like to come in for coffee? Eleanor's face brightened. I'd love to, if you're sure I'm not bothering you. We sat in my living room, the same room where Elijah had confessed just hours earlier, and Eleanor turned out to be surprisingly easy to talk to. She was 73, a retired school teacher, widowed for 8 years, and she'd been through something eerily similar with her own daughter. 5 years ago, Eleanor told me, stirring cream into her coffee, my daughter Rachel and her husband moved to Houston, needed help getting established, they said. I co-signed their apartment lease, helped with deposit, bought them furniture. Sound familiar? I nodded, my throat tight. It started small. Electric bill 1 month. Car insurance the next. Before I knew it, I was subsidizing their entire lifestyle, $30,000 over 2 years. Eleanor's voice was matter of fact, but I could hear the old pain underneath. Then Rachel told me she was pregnant. I was thrilled, my first grandchild. I bought everything. Crib, stroller, car seat, clothes. Thousands more dollars. What happened? I asked, though I could already guess. She had the baby. Beautiful little girl, Sophia. And for 3 months I was the happiest grandmother alive. Then Rachel and Tom announced they were moving to California. Better job opportunity, they said. Did they want me to come visit and meet the baby? Did they invite me to help with the move? Eleanor's smile was bitter. No. They wanted $5,000 to cover moving expenses. When I said I couldn't afford it, that I'd already given them so much, Rachel said I was selfish. Said if I really loved my granddaughter, I'd help them give her a better life. Did you give them the money? I did. Eleanor looked ashamed. I drained the last of my savings and gave it to them. They moved to San Diego. I've seen my granddaughter exactly twice in 5 years, both times when I flew out there and paid for my own hotel. Rachel never calls unless she needs something. Last Christmas, she sent me a text message. Not even a phone call. We sat in silence for a moment. 2 mothers grieving the children we'd thought we had. What made you finally stop? I asked. My son, Eleanor said. My younger son, Patrick. He lives in Dallas, calls every week, visits once a month, never asks for money. One day he saw my bank statements and realized what had been happening. He sat me down and said, Mom, you deserve better than this. Rachel doesn't love you, she loves your wallet. And if you keep enabling her, she'll never have a reason to change. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I cut her off, cold turkey. No more money, no matter what the emergency was. How long until she came around? Eleanor's laugh was sad. She hasn't. It's been 3 years, and she still barely speaks to me. But you know what? I sleep better now. I don't spend my days anxious about the next request, the next crisis, the next way I'm going to disappoint her by having the audacity to want some boundaries. And Patrick and I have gotten closer. I've traveled. I've lived my life. For the first time in years, I'm not just a checkbook with feelings. That phrase hit home. A checkbook with feelings. That's exactly what I'd been to Elijah and Madison. I heard some of what was said yesterday, Eleanor admitted quietly. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to listen, but voices carry. That young woman who called you desperate, who said you were never needed, Mrs. Rodriguez, that kind of cruelty isn't normal. That's not how people treat someone they love. I know, I whispered. I think I've known for a while. I just didn't want to see it. Eleanor reached over and squeezed my hand. We never do. We're mothers. We want to believe the best of our children. We want to think that if we just give a little more, love a little harder, sacrifice a little deeper, eventually they'll appreciate us. But some people are bottomless pits. No amount of giving will ever be enough. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Rodriguez, this is Special Agent Morrison, FBI Houston. Your sister Rosa provided your contact. Elijah Rodriguez has given a comprehensive statement regarding financial crimes committed by Madison Ellington. He's agreed to wear a recording device and has been fitted with one. He's returning to his residence now. I'll be in touch with updates. Thank you for your cooperation in this matter. So it was happening. Right now, Elijah was going back to that apartment, my apartment, the one I'd been paying for with money earned through lies wired for sound, about to betray the woman he'd married. Or was he betraying her? Could you betray someone who'd manipulated and used you? The ethics of it made my head spin. Eleanor noticed my expression. Bad news? No. Actually, maybe good news. I'm not sure yet. I looked at this kind woman who'd shared her painful story with me. Can I ask you something? Do you ever regret cutting your daughter off? Do you ever wonder if you were too harsh? Eleanor considered the question carefully. Sometimes. Late at night, when I'm alone, I wonder if I could have tried harder, found some middle ground. But then I remember how I felt during those years, the constant anxiety, the guilt, the sense that I was never enough. And I remember that I'm not just a mother, I'm a person. I deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. We all do. Even by our own children? Especially by our own children, Eleanor said firmly. They're the ones who should love us most, not use us most. We talked for another hour. Eleanor told me about the garden club she belonged to, about the book club that met at the library every Thursday, about the volunteer work she did at the food bank. She told me about a life that existed beyond being someone's mother, beyond being needed and used and drained dry. You should come to garden club, Eleanor said as she prepared to leave. We meet every other Saturday at 10 a.m. Bunch of women, most of us around your age, talking about plants and life and whatever else comes up. No drama, no demands, just friendship. Real friendship, the kind where people actually care about you as a person. I'd like that, I said, and meant it. After Eleanor left, I walked through my house room by room, really looking at it for the first time in months. Every space held evidence of my generosity toward Elijah and Madison. The guest room closet stuffed with clothes I'd bought Madison that she'd never worn, not quite right, she'd said, but never returned. The garage packed with furniture they'd replaced, the first couch not modern enough, the first dining set not sophisticated enough. Thousands of dollars of cast-offs from my children, stored in my house like a museum of my own foolishness. I spent the afternoon hauling it all to the curb for donation pickup. Every piece I dragged out felt like shedding dead weight. The couch gone. The dining chairs gone. The lamp Madison said was tacky gone. Box after box of clothes with tags still attached gone. By the time the donation truck pulled up at 4 p.m., my curb looked like a furniture store had exploded. The driver's eyes widened. You sure you want to donate all this, ma'am? He asked. Some of this stuff looks brand new. I'm sure, I told him. I'm very, very sure. I stood on my porch and watched them load everything into the truck. Each piece that disappeared felt like a piece of my old self going with it, the desperate, people-pleasing mother who thought love could be purchased, who believed sacrifice alone would earn appreciation. That woman was gone now, and I wasn't entirely sure yet who was taking her place, but whoever she was going to be a lot harder to manipulate. My phone rang. Rosa. It's happening, she said without preamble. Elijah went back to the apartment. Madison's home. The wire is active. Morrison's team is monitoring in real time from a van 2 blocks away. Simone. She's already talking. She bought his story completely. She thinks everything's under control. What's she saying? Everything. The embezzlement, the fake invoices, the guardianship plan. She's walking him through the timeline when they'll file the petition, which judge they'll try to get, how long before they have full control of your assets. She's even laughing about it, Simone. Laughing about how easy it's been to manipulate you. Each word was a needle in my heart, but somehow the pain felt clean, honest. This was truth, ugly and brutal, but truth nonetheless. How much longer? I asked. Morrison wants at least 2 hours of recording to make sure they have everything. Then they'll move in with a warrant. Today? Today, Rosa confirmed. By tonight, Madison Ellington will be in federal custody. I sat down heavily on my porch steps, watching the sun begin its descent toward the horizon. By tonight, my son's wife would be arrested. By tonight, my son would be a cooperating witness against his own spouse. By tonight, whatever remained of my family would be officially, irrevocably destroyed. And somehow, impossibly, I felt something that might have been relief. The call came at 6:47 p.m., just as the last light was fading from my backyard. I was sitting at my kitchen table, untouched dinner in front of me, when my phone lit up with Rosa's number. It's done, she said simply. I closed my eyes, feeling a strange mixture of vindication and grief wash over me. Tell me. FBI executed the warrant at 6:15. Madison was arrested on charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, theft, and conspiracy. They found the safe deposit box key exactly where Elijah said it would be. The box contained $83,000 in cash, falsified documents, and jewelry purchased with stolen funds. She's being processed right now at the Federal Detention Center. And Elijah? Rosa's pause was significant. He's with Agent Morrison giving additional testimony. Simone, there's more. A lot more. When they searched the apartment, they found something Madison had hidden in the back of her closet, a burner laptop she'd been using to cover her tracks. The tech team cracked it in under an hour. What was on it? A whole second life. Rosa's voice was tight with anger. Madison's been running this scam for years, long before she met Elijah. Her previous boyfriend in Dallas, she did the same thing to his mother. Took the woman for $90,000 over 2 years, then moved on when the money dried up. There were detailed notes, Simone. Like a playbook. How to identify vulnerable targets, manipulation techniques for elderly parents, legal strategies for guardianship. She'd been planning this systematically. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. Elijah was just, what? A means to an end? Looks that way. The laptop had emails to friends bragging about landing a mama's boy with a loaded mother. That's a direct quote. She targeted him specifically because she knew you were wealthy and widowed. She researched you before she even went on a first date with him. I thought back to how they'd met at a Rice University alumni event 3.5 years ago. Madison had approached Elijah, complimented his tie, asked about his work. It had seemed like a romantic meet-cute, but it had been a hunting expedition. There's something else, Rosa continued, her voice dropping. Something I need to tell you in person. I'm 10 minutes away. Don't open any wine yet, you're going to need to be sober for this conversation. She hung up before I could ask questions. 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. I paced my kitchen, my mind racing through possibilities. What could be worse than what I'd already learned? What other betrayal could there possibly be? When Rosa's car pulled into my driveway, she wasn't alone. A man in a dark suit emerged from the passenger side, carrying a leather briefcase. They walked to my door together, Rosa's expression grim. Simone, this is Agent Morrison, Rosa said as I let them in. He needs to ask you some questions. Personal questions. Please just try to stay calm. Agent Morrison was in his mid-40s, with the kind face of someone who'd delivered bad news too many times. Mrs. Rodriguez, thank you for your cooperation today. What your son did took courage, and it's going to result in a significant prosecution. But in the course of our investigation, something came to light that we need to discuss with you. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a file. During our search of Madison Ellington's laptop, we found extensive research into your financial history, bank accounts, investment portfolios, property records, but we also found medical records. My medical records? How did she get those? Illegally, most likely through a private investigator or by hacking your healthcare portal. But that's not the issue right now. Morrison pulled out a document. Mrs. Rodriguez, these records show that in 2009, you underwent a minor surgical procedure at Houston Methodist. The billing codes indicate it was related to reproductive health. Specifically, a voluntary tubal ligation. I felt my face flush. That's private. That's none of anyone's business. Normally you'd be absolutely right, Morrison said gently, but Madison was using this information as part of her guardianship strategy. She'd highlighted this procedure and made notes about using it to suggest you'd been making questionable medical decisions for years. However, in reviewing the full file, we noticed something else. Something that doesn't match other records we have. He pulled out another document, a birth certificate. Mrs. Rodriguez, do you have a daughter? The question hit me like a physical blow. What? No. I have one child. Elijah. Just Elijah. Morrison and Rosa exchanged glances. Ma'am, according to hospital records from Houston Women's Hospital, you gave birth to a female infant on March 15, 1998. The baby was immediately placed for adoption through a private agency. The floor dropped out from under me. I grabbed the counter, my legs suddenly unable to support my weight. That's not possible. That's not. I would remember. But even as I said it, memories were surfacing. Terrible, suppressed memories I'd buried so deep, I'd convinced myself they'd never happened. March 1998. Elijah had been 5 years old. Robert had been dead for just 6 months. I'd been drowning in grief and single parenthood, working 3 jobs to keep us afloat. And I'd been late. Then I'd been sick. Then I'd been terrified. "Oh God," I whispered, sinking into a chair. "Oh God, I'd forgotten. I made myself forget." Rosa knelt beside me, gripping my hand. "Simone, what happened?" The memories came flooding back now, unstoppable. Robert had just died. We had no savings. Everything went to medical bills and the funeral. I was barely holding on, barely keeping Elijah fed and clothed. And then I found out I was pregnant. My voice broke. I was 41 years old, alone, terrified. I couldn't afford another child. I could barely afford the one I had. If you find this part truly thought-provoking, go ahead and hit like to show your support. Do you feel the same way as the character in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. "So you gave her up for adoption," Morrison said softly. "A private agency, Catholic Charities. They promised she'd go to a good family, people who could give her everything I couldn't." Tears were streaming down my face now. I held her for 5 minutes after she was born. She had Robert's nose, his exact nose. And then they took her away, and I signed papers saying I would never contact her, never try to find her. And I went home to Elijah, and I locked that day away in a box in my mind, and I never opened it again. "Until now," Rosa said gently. "Why are you telling me this?" I looked at Morrison through my tears. "What does this have to do with Madison?" Morrison's expression was complicated. "Because Madison found her. Your daughter. She's been in contact with her." The room spun violently. "What?" "Madison tracked down the adoption agency records again, illegally. She found your daughter and made contact with her 3 months ago. Her name is Lily Chen. She's 27 years old, living in San Antonio. She's a high school art teacher, and Madison has been manipulating her too." Rosa squeezed my hand tighter as Morrison continued. "Madison told Lily that you were wealthy and dying, that you were looking for your long-lost daughter to leave your estate to. She convinced Lily to work with her on what she called reuniting your family. The plan was to have Lily show up after Madison gained guardianship, present DNA evidence proving she was your daughter, and then split your estate 3 ways: Elijah, Madison, and Lily. But Lily doesn't know it's a scam," Rosa added quickly. "From what we can tell, she genuinely believes Madison is helping her reconnect with her birth mother. She has no idea about the fraud or the guardianship scheme." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I had a daughter, a living, breathing daughter I'd given away 27 years ago. And now she was caught up in this nightmare, being used as another pawn in Madison's con. "Does she?" I couldn't finish the question. "Does she want to meet you?" Morrison finished. "According to the messages we recovered, yes. Very much. She's been asking Madison for months when she could contact you. Madison kept putting her off, saying the timing had to be right, that you were fragile and they needed to wait for the perfect moment. Where is she?" The words came out desperate. "Where is Lily?" "San Antonio. We've already contacted her and informed her of the situation. She's shocked and confused. She thought she was doing something good, helping facilitate a reunion. Now she knows she was being manipulated." Morrison pulled out a photograph. "This is her, from her school faculty page." He handed me a printed photo, and I felt my heart stop. The woman in the picture was 27 years old, with long dark hair and warm brown eyes. She was smiling at the camera, surrounded by what looked like student artwork, and she had Robert's nose. That same distinctive nose I'd seen for 5 minutes 27 years ago. "She's beautiful," I whispered. "She wants to talk to you," Morrison said, "if you're willing. She's frightened that you'll hate her for being involved with Madison, even unknowingly, but she's also hopeful that maybe something good can come out of all this." I stared at the photograph, at this stranger who was my daughter, and felt emotions I couldn't begin to name crash over me: grief for the baby I'd given away, rage at Madison for weaponizing even this, fear that Lily would hate me for abandoning her, hope that maybe, impossibly, I could know her. "There's more," Rosa said quietly. Simone, Lily has been asking about Elijah, her brother. She wants to know him too. She's always wanted siblings. The irony was crushing. Elijah, who'd betrayed me in every possible way, had a sister who desperately wanted to be part of his life. A sister neither of them had known existed until a con artist dug up buried secrets. I need to think, I said, my voice barely audible. This is too much. I can't. Take all the time you need, Morrison said, standing. Here's my card. When you're ready to talk to Lily, just call me. I'll facilitate the introduction. She's a victim in this too, Mrs. Rodriguez. Madison lied to her, used her, made promises that were never real. You're both recovering from the same con artist. After they left, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at Lily's photograph. I'd spent 3 years giving Elijah everything, trying to buy his love, his loyalty, his presence in my life. And the whole time, somewhere in San Antonio, there was a daughter I didn't know I still wanted. A daughter who'd been searching for me while I was being bled dry by the son I'd kept. The universe had a cruel sense of irony. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown San Antonio number. Mrs. Rodriguez, this is Lily Chen. Agent Morrison gave me your number. I understand if you never want to hear from me. I'm so sorry I got caught up in all this. But I just wanted you to know I've thought about you my whole life. And I don't want anything from you except maybe the chance to say hello. No pressure. Just, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Your daughter, Lily. I read the message 3 times, then 4, then 5. Your daughter, Lily. Words I'd never thought I'd see. Outside, night had fallen completely. My house was dark except for the single kitchen light. Somewhere in San Antonio, a woman I'd held for 5 minutes 27 years ago was waiting for a response she probably didn't expect to get. Somewhere in federal detention, the woman who'd orchestrated all of this was probably still convinced she'd done nothing wrong. And somewhere I didn't even know where my son was dealing with the wreckage of his own choices. I looked at Lily's message again. Then, with shaking hands, I began to type. My fingers hovered over the phone keyboard for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. What could I possibly say to this stranger who was my daughter? How did you begin a conversation that should have started 27 years ago? Finally, I typed, Lily, this is Simone. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. I'm sorry for giving you up. I'm sorry you got caught up in Madison's schemes. And I'm sorry it took something this terrible for me to even know you were looking for me. If you're willing, I would very much like to talk. Not tonight, I need time to process everything. But soon, very soon. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The response came within seconds. Take all the time you need. I've waited 27 years. I can wait a little longer. Thank you for responding. That's more than I hoped for. 2. The heart emoji undid me. I put my head down on the kitchen table and cried for the baby I'd given away, for the daughter I'd never known, for the son who'd betrayed me, for the life I'd thought I was building that turned out to be nothing but lies stacked on lies. When the tears finally stopped, I felt hollowed out but strangely clear-headed. Rosa had said to take things one step at a time. Right now, the next step was understanding exactly how deep Madison's theft had gone. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank accounts for the first time in weeks. I'd been avoiding them, not wanting to see the evidence of my own foolishness, but now I needed to know the full scope of the damage. My primary checking account, the one I used for everyday expenses, showed a balance of $8,312. That was fine. Normal. But my savings account, the one I'd been transferring money from to cover Elijah and Madison's emergencies, told a different story. 4 years ago, it had held $230,000 Robert's life insurance payout that I'd carefully saved and invested. Now it showed $42,906. $187,000. Gone. In just under 4 years. I pulled up my investment account next. This was the retirement fund I'd built through decades of work, the money that was supposed to see me through my old age. It should have had approximately $450,000 in it. It showed $308,000. Another $142,000. Gone. Loans taken against the account, early withdrawals with penalties, all carefully documented in statements I'd been too trusting to read carefully. And there, in black and white, were signatures on the loan documents. My signature. Except it wasn't my signature. I pulled out documents from my file cabinet, my actual signature on tax returns, on property deeds, on legal papers. Then I compared them to the signatures on the retirement account loans. Close, but not quite right. The capital S in Simone was slightly different. The loop in the R of Rodriguez was too small. Someone had practiced forging my signature, had gotten good at it, but not perfect. Madison. It had to be Madison. She was the one with access to legal documents, the one who knew how to make forgery look legitimate. I did the math in my head, then double-checked it on my calculator because the number seemed impossible. $329,000. That's what I'd lost to them. Not the $167,000 Rosa and I had initially calculated. That was just the documented direct transfers. The real number, including the hidden rent markup, the forged loans, the stolen retirement funds, was nearly double. $329,000. More than a quarter of my total net worth. Gone. I sat back in my chair feeling physically ill. That money represented 40 years of work, every open house I'd hosted in the blazing Houston heat, every difficult client I'd managed with a smile, every weekend I'd worked instead of resting, every vacation I'd skipped to save more, every small luxury I denied myself to build security for my future. And they'd stolen it. Methodically, systematically, over years, while smiling at me, while calling me mom, while pretending to love me. My phone rang. Rosa. "Don't look at your bank accounts tonight," she said without preamble. "I know you, Simone. I know you're looking right now. Stop. It's only going to make you sick." "Too late," I said. 329,000, Rosa. That's the real number." The silence on her end was long. Jesus Christ. The retirement account. She forged my signature on loan applications. I compared the signatures, they're fake. That's identity theft on top of everything else. "That's actually good news," Rosa said. "I know it doesn't feel like it, but the more crimes we can document, the longer her sentence will be. And Simone, you can get some of that money back. The forged loans are fraudulent, which means the lending institution will have to eat those losses. Your retirement fund will be restored. It won't be fast, and it won't be easy, but you'll get that money back. What about the rest, the transfers I authorized? Harder, but not impossible. Elder financial abuse restitution is part of federal sentencing guidelines. If Madison is convicted, and with the evidence we have, she will be the judge can order her to pay you back. She'll probably never be able to, but it'll be on the books. And her assets, including that secret bank account with $93,000 in it, will be seized and returned to victims. You're victim number 1, Simone." Victim. The word tasted bitter. At 77 years old, I was a victim of my own son and his wife. "What happens now?" I asked. "Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., you're meeting with Bernard Chen, the attorney I told you about. He's going to file a civil suit against both Madison and Elijah for elder abuse, fraud, and theft. He's also going to help you secure your remaining assets so nothing else can be touched. And Simone, you need to change your will. Tonight, if possible." "My will? I hadn't even thought about that. Right now, Elijah is your sole beneficiary. If something happens to you before this is resolved, everything goes to him, and by extension, to Madison. You need to change that immediately." The thought of Elijah inheriting everything after what he'd done made my blood run cold. What do I do? "I'm texting you a link to a legal forms website. You can do an emergency temporary will revision online, have it notarized electronically. It's not permanent, but it'll hold up in court if needed. Tomorrow Chen will help you draft a proper one." Who do I leave everything to? The question sounded absurd. I had no other family except Lily, Rosa said, reading my mind. "Leave it to Lily. She's your daughter, she's innocent in all this, and it protects your assets from Elijah and Madison until this is sorted out." Leaving my estate to a daughter I'd never met felt surreal, but Rosa was right. It was the only logical choice. "What about Elijah?" I asked. "What's going to happen to him?" Rosa sighed. "That depends on how cooperative he continues to be and how much the prosecutor believes he was manipulated versus complicit. Best case scenario, he gets a plea deal with probation and community service. Worst case, he does time for being an accessory to fraud. The wire recording he got tonight will go a long way toward leniency." "Did he get enough?" "More than enough. Madison detailed the entire embezzlement scheme, bragged about how stupid her law firm partners are for not catching her, and explicitly laid out the guardianship plan, including bribing Dr. Lehman to testify. It's a prosecutor's dream. She even mentioned other marks she's working on, apparently. There's a wealthy widow in Dallas she's been cultivating online. The FBI is contacting her now. So I wasn't even Madison's only victim. I was just one in a series of vulnerable older women she'd targeted. The thought was somehow both devastating and oddly comforting. At least it wasn't personal. I wasn't uniquely foolish. I was just unlucky enough to have a son she could use as an access point. Rosa, I need to ask you something. Anything. Why did you really come down here so fast? You said you drove 90 miles an hour. What made you think it was that urgent? Another long pause. Because I saw how this could end, Simone. Women like Madison, they escalate. When they can't get what they want through manipulation, they move to legal coercion. And when that doesn't work, she trailed off. Say it. There have been cases where the elderly target mysteriously dies. An overdose of medication, a fall down the stairs, something that looks like an accident but removes the obstacle between the abuser and the money. I saw those cases when I was with the FBI. And when you told me about Madison's timeline, about the guardianship plan happening this week, about her desperation, I got scared, Simone. Really scared. The implication hung in the air between us. Madison might have been willing to kill me. You think she would have? I think she's a sociopath who sees people as resources and obstacles, Rosa interrupted. I think she's already demonstrated a complete lack of conscience. And I think you not being able to reach the phone when you had chest pains yesterday was very, very lucky timing. Because if you died then, before we had any of this evidence, it would have looked natural. A 77-year-old woman with a heart condition. No one would have questioned it. My hand went to my chest, remembering the pain, the crushing pressure, the feeling of my heart trying to beat its way out of my rib cage. Had that been a heart attack? Or just a panic attack? I need you to go to the doctor tomorrow, Rosa said firmly. After you meet with Chen, get a full cardiac workup. Not because I think anything's wrong, but because we need documentation that you're healthy and competent. Madison's going to argue that you're mentally and physically failing. We need medical proof that you're fine. I'll go. I promised. After we hung up, I spent the next hour following Rosa's instructions. I filled out the emergency will revision, changed everything to leave my estate to Lily Chen, had it notarized electronically through a video call with a notary service. It felt wrong, leaving everything to a stranger, but leaving it to Elijah felt worse. Then I started changing passwords. Bank accounts, investment accounts, email, social media, my real estate company portal, everything. I enabled two-factor authentication on everything. I added security alerts so I'd be notified of any unusual activity. It was nearly midnight when I finally finished. I was exhausted, emotionally wrung out, but there was one more thing I needed to do. I opened a new email and addressed it to Lily Chen, using the email address Agent Morrison had provided. Dear Lily, I wrote, I don't know how to be a mother to a 27-year-old woman I've never met. I don't know if you even want me to try. But I want you to know that giving you up was the hardest thing I ever did. I was 41, newly widowed, with a 5-year-old son and no money. I thought I was giving you a better life. I hope I did. I hope your adoptive parents loved you the way you deserve to be loved. I'm sorry Madison found you before I did. I'm sorry she used you. But I'm not sorry I know you exist now. Even with everything that's happened, even with all the pain, knowing I have a daughter out there who wanted to find me, that's something. Maybe the only good thing to come out of this nightmare. If you're willing, I'd like to meet you. Really meet you, not through FBI agents and lawyers. Maybe we could have coffee somewhere neutral. I could show you pictures of your biological father. Robert was a good man, and you have his nose. I could tell you about your half-brother, though I'm not sure there's much good to say about him right now. Mostly, I could just listen, let you ask whatever questions you have. No pressure, no expectations, just possibility. Your birth mother, Simone. I hit send before I could overthink it. Then I finally went to bed. It was 12:37 a.m. In less than 9 hours, I had to meet with an attorney to file suit against my own child. But for the first time in 3 years, maybe longer, I fell asleep without that constant knot of anxiety in my stomach. The money was gone. My son was a stranger. and my life was in ruins. But I was done being a victim. Tomorrow, I'd start being a survivor. I woke at 6 a.m. to the sound of my phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. For a disoriented moment, I thought it was 3 years ago and Elijah was calling with another emergency car trouble, medical bill, broken appliance that needed immediate replacement. Then reality crashed back. Yesterday, Madison's arrest. The daughter I never knew existed. $329,000 stolen. The phone showed a text from Lily. I got your email. I read it 5 times. Yes to coffee. Yes to everything. I have so many questions. And Mom, can I call you that? I want to tell you about my life, about my parents. They were wonderful. They died in a car accident 4 years ago. About teaching. About everything. Thank you for responding. Thank you for wanting to know me. She'd called me Mom. This stranger who shared my DNA had called me Mom, and somehow it hurt less coming from her than it had from Elijah for the past 3 years. I typed back, "You can call me whatever feels right. Mom, Simone, whatever you're comfortable with. I want to know everything. After I handle some legal matters this week, let's set up that coffee. San Antonio or Houston, wherever works for you." 3 dots appeared immediately then. I'll drive to Houston. I want to see where you live, where my brother grew up. Is that okay? My brother. She wanted to know Elijah. How could I explain that her brother was complicit in a scheme that had used her as an unwitting pawn? How could I tell her that the family reunion she'd been dreaming of was actually a con? "We'll talk about everything when we meet," I typed. Face to face is better for hard conversations. I dragged myself out of bed and into the shower, letting the hot water pound away some of the tension in my shoulders. Today I would sit across from an attorney and formally accuse my son of elder abuse. Today I would sign documents that would potentially send him to prison. The water mixed with tears and I let them come. In the privacy of my shower, I could still be the broken-hearted mother. Out there, I had to be the steely survivor. Rosa arrived at 7:30 with coffee and kolaches from Shipley Donuts Houston Comfort Food. We sat at my kitchen table and went over the agenda for the day like soldiers planning a campaign. 9 a.m. Bernard Chen's office. "He's going to present you with a lot of paperwork. Read everything before you sign, but trust me, he's thorough. He's already filed a restraining order request against both Madison and Elijah. By this afternoon, they won't be legally allowed within 500 feet of you or your property." Elijah too? The thought hurt even after everything. "Especially Elijah," Rosa said firmly. "Simone, I know he wore the wire. I know he's cooperating. But he's also demonstrated that he's capable of lying to you for years. Until this case is resolved, you need legal protection from both of them." She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing and feeling were 2 different things. "What's he saying?" I couldn't help asking. "Elijah, what's he saying about all this?" Rosa's expression softened slightly. "According to Agent Morrison, he's devastated. He's been asking to talk to you. They told him no, that any contact could compromise the investigation. He's staying in a hotel room the FBI is paying for. Protective custody, essentially, in case Madison's associates try to retaliate." Madison has associates? That was new information. She was running this con in multiple cities, remember? The widow in Dallas she mentioned on the wire? Turns out there are 2 others, one in Austin, one in San Antonio. The FBI is building a RICO case. Racketeering. Madison wasn't working alone. She had a network. The thought made me physically ill. How many people were in on this? Still investigating, but at least 3 others. A fake doctor who'd write diagnoses for a fee. A lawyer who'd file fraudulent guardianship petitions. And someone inside the private investigation firm she used to dig up information on Marks, including finding Lily's adoption records. I set down my kolache, appetite gone. This is so much bigger than I thought. "It's a full criminal enterprise," Rosa confirmed. "And you, Simone, are going to be the star witness. Your testimony is going to take down multiple people who've been preying on vulnerable elderly people for years. I don't want to be a star witness. I just want my life back." "I know." Rosa reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "But sometimes we don't get to choose our role in the story. You're a victim who's becoming a warrior. That matters. There are other women out there right now being victimized the same way you were. Your testimony is going to save them." At 8:45, we drove to Bernard Chen's office in a sleek high-rise near the Galleria. The waiting room was all glass and chrome, with abstract art on the walls and fresh orchids on the reception desk, a far cry from the homey real estate office I'd run for decades. Bernard Chen himself was in his early 60s, impeccably dressed in a navy suit, with steel gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. He shook my hand with exactly the right amount of firmness, confident but not aggressive. "Mrs. Rodriguez, thank you for coming. I know this is incredibly difficult. Rosa has briefed me on the situation, and I want you to know we're going to fight this with everything we have." His office overlooked the Houston skyline. We sat at a conference table, and he opened a thick folder. "I've already filed preliminary paperwork this morning. A civil suit against Madison Ellington for fraud, theft, elder abuse, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. A separate suit against Elijah Rodriguez for the same. A motion to freeze any remaining assets in their joint accounts. And this," he slid a document across to me, "is a restraining order that Judge Martinez signed an hour ago. As of 8 a.m. this morning, neither Madison nor Elijah can contact you, approach you, or come within 500 feet of your residence or place of business." I stared at the restraining order with my son's name on it. Legal proof that I feared my own child. "I know this feels extreme," Chen said gently, "but Mrs. Rodriguez, in my 30 years practicing elder law, I've learned that family members who steal are often the most dangerous when the money stops flowing. The restraining order isn't just legal strategy, it's physical protection." "What if Elijah violates it?" I asked. "He'll be arrested immediately, and it will destroy any hope he has of a favorable plea deal with the prosecutors. He'd be looking at significant prison time." Chen pulled out another folder. "Now, let's talk about asset recovery. Rosa mentioned the forged signatures on your retirement account loans?" "Yes. I compared them to my real signature. They're close but not exact." "Good. I'll need those original documents. We're going to hire a forensic handwriting analyst to officially confirm the forgery. Once we have that, the lending institution is liable for those fraudulent loans. They'll restore your retirement account and pursue Madison for the losses themselves. That's approximately $142,000 you'll recover." Some of the weight on my chest lifted slightly. "Really?" "Really. The bank screwed up by not verifying the signatures properly. They'll settle quickly to avoid a lawsuit. The direct transfers you authorized are harder legally. You did authorize those. But given the evidence of systematic manipulation and the criminal charges Madison is facing, we can argue undue influence and duress. It's not guaranteed, but I'd say we have a 60% chance of recovering at least half of that money through restitution orders. And the rent they lied about? The extra $1,000 a month? That's straightforward theft by deception. $36,000. We'll get that back either through criminal restitution or civil judgment. Madison's seized assets, that $93,000 in her secret account, will be distributed to victims. You're the primary victim, so you'll get the majority of it. I did the math quickly. Retirement account, $142,000. Half of the direct transfers, approximately $94,000. Rent fraud, $36,000. Seized assets, approximately $70,000, assuming other victims got shares. That was $342,000 more than had been stolen. Theoretically, I could end up whole or close to it. "How long will this take?" I asked. "The criminal case will move relatively quickly, 6 months to a year. The civil recovery could take 2 to 3 years. But Mrs. Rodriguez, I want to be honest with you. Even if we win every judgment, even if the courts order full restitution, Madison probably won't have the money to pay. She spent most of what she stole. We'll recover what we can from seized assets, but you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that you won't get everything back." "I understand. There's one more thing." Chen's expression grew more serious. "The district attorney's office has indicated they want you to testify at Madison's trial, possibly at Elijah's too, if his case goes to trial instead of a plea. Are you prepared for that? It means taking the stand, being cross-examined by defense attorneys who'll try to make you look confused or vindictive. It means facing them in court." I thought about Madison's cold eyes, her calculated cruelty. I thought about Elijah's weakness, his willingness to betray me for a woman who'd never loved him. I thought about the other victims Rosa had mentioned, women who were still being conned, still losing their savings, still believing their family members loved them. "I'll do it," I said. Whatever it takes, I'll testify. Chen smiled, and it was the smile of a man who'd just been handed the weapon he needed. Good, because your testimony is going to be devastating. You're articulate, credible, and sympathetic. A 77-year-old widow who worked her whole life, raised her son alone, and got betrayed by her own family. Juries eat that up. Madison's attorney is going to have nightmares about you on the stand. After the meeting, Rosa drove me to Houston Methodist for the cardiac workup she'd insisted on. The doctor, a kind woman in her 50s named Dr. Patel, ran an EKG, an echocardiogram, and a stress test. "Your heart is fine," she told me afterward. "What you experienced yesterday was almost certainly a severe anxiety attack, not a cardiac event. Your heart is actually in excellent shape for your age. Blood pressure slightly elevated, but that's to be expected given the stress you're under." "So I'm healthy?" "Physically? Very. Mentally and emotionally? Mrs. Rodriguez, you've experienced significant trauma. I'm going to recommend you see a therapist who specializes in family abuse. What you're going through, it's not something you should process alone." She gave me a referral to Dr. Sarah Kim, a psychologist who worked extensively with elder abuse victims. I tucked the card in my wallet, not sure if I'd use it but grateful for the option. By the time Rosa dropped me back home, it was nearly 3 p.m. I was exhausted emotionally, physically, spiritually drained. But there, in my mailbox, was a hand-addressed envelope with a San Antonio postmark. Inside was a photograph and a letter in neat, feminine handwriting. "Dear Simone," the letter began, "I couldn't wait for our coffee date to show you this. This is me at my high school graduation, my adoptive parents on either side. See my mom's smile? She was the kindest woman I ever knew, and my dad, he taught me to paint. They loved me completely. I need you to know that. You gave me to good people who gave me a wonderful life. You made the right choice, even though it cost you everything. I don't resent you for it. I never could. Thank you for my life. Your daughter, Lily." The photograph showed a younger Lily in a blue graduation gown, flanked by a middle-aged Asian couple who gazed at her with obvious adoration. And Lily, she was radiant, clearly loved, clearly happy. I'd done something right. In a life full of mistakes and bad decisions and misplaced trust, I'd made one choice that turned out perfectly. I'd given my daughter to people who loved her the way she deserved. For the first time in days, I smiled through my tears. It wasn't a happy smile, but it was real. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I cooked myself a proper dinner. Not leftovers, not takeout, not a sad, frozen meal eaten standing at the counter. I made Robert's recipe for chicken piccata, the one he used to make on special occasions, with angel hair pasta and a Caesar salad. I set the dining room table with real plates, cloth napkins, a wine glass with actual wine in it. I lit candles, and I sat down alone in my big empty house and had dinner like a human being who deserved nice things. The chicken was slightly overcooked. I was out of practice, but it was mine, made with my money, in my kitchen, for my own pleasure. No one was going to text me halfway through demanding I drop everything to solve their crisis. No one was going to show up unannounced, expecting me to feed them while they complained about how hard their lives were. It was just me. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, that felt like enough. I was washing dishes when my doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Eleanor Brooks on my porch, holding what looked like a casserole dish and wearing an expression of determined kindness. "I heard," she said simply when I opened the door. "Well, I didn't hear specifics, but I saw the FBI vehicles yesterday and the way your sister looked when she left this morning. I put 2 and 2 together. I brought lasagna. Homemade. You don't have to eat it tonight, it freezes beautifully. But I wanted you to know you're not alone." I stood there holding her lasagna, this gift from a woman I barely knew, and felt tears prick my eyes again. "Thank you. Would you like to come in?" "Only if you want company. I know sometimes the best thing for a broken heart is solitude." Company sounds nice, actually. We sat in my living room with decaf coffee. My nerves couldn't handle more caffeine, and Eleanor told me more about her own journey through family betrayal and recovery. "The first year after I cut Rachel off was the hardest," she said. "I kept second-guessing myself, wondering if I was being cruel, if I should just give her one more chance. The guilt was overwhelming." "How did you get through it?" "Therapy helped. And my son Patrick, he kept reminding me that love without boundaries isn't love, it's enabling. He said something I'll never forget. Mom, you can love someone and still refuse to participate in your own abuse. Eleanor sipped her coffee. That's what you're doing, Simone. You're refusing to participate. That takes incredible strength. It doesn't feel strong. It feels like my heart is being ripped out. Because it is. That's the thing people don't understand about family abuse. It's not like abuse from a stranger. This is someone you loved, someone you trusted completely. The betrayal doesn't just hurt, it fundamentally changes how you see the world. Eleanor set down her mug. But here's what I learned. You survive it. Day by day, hour by hour sometimes, you survive. And eventually, you don't just survive, you rebuild. You become someone new. Someone who knows her worth. Someone who won't settle for crumbs of affection in exchange for her dignity. Did Rachel ever come back? Did she ever apologize? Eleanor's smile was sad. No, she calls maybe twice a year, always around Christmas and her birthday. She's polite, but distant. We make small talk about weather and her daughter's school. She's never once acknowledged what she did or apologized for it. And you know what? I've made peace with that. She is who she is. I can't change her. I can only change how I respond to her. Do you still send birthday gifts? Christmas presents? For my granddaughter, yes. Modest gifts. Always sent directly to Sophia, never through Rachel. For Rachel? Eleanor shook her head. No. And I don't feel guilty about that anymore. She's a 42-year-old woman with a good job and a husband. She doesn't need my money, she just wants it. There's a difference. We talked until nearly 10 p.m. Eleanor told me about the garden club it met this coming Saturday, and she insisted I come. It's not just about plants, she explained. It's about community, women supporting women. Several of us have been through versions of what you're going through. You'd be surprised how common it is, and how healing it is to be around people who understand. After Eleanor left, I checked my email. 3 new messages. One from Bernard Chen. Restraining orders officially served at 6 p.m. Madison served in detention. Elijah served at his hotel. Both have been notified they cannot contact you. Sleep well knowing you're legally protected. BC. One from Dr. Kim's office. The therapist Dr. Patel had recommended. Mrs. Rodriguez. Dr. Kim has an opening Thursday at 2 p.m. if you'd like to begin sessions. Please call to confirm. And one from Lily. I don't mean to overwhelm you, but I couldn't sleep, so I made something. I teach art, and when I'm processing emotions, I paint. This is how I see us, 2 puzzle pieces that got separated but still fit together. No pressure to respond tonight, just wanted to share. Sweet dreams, Mom. Attached was a digital painting of 2 interlocking puzzle pieces, one dark blue and one light blue, separated but clearly designed to connect. On each piece was a faint shadow image of a woman, one older, one younger, both looking toward each other across the gap. It was beautiful and heartbreaking and hopeful all at once. I wrote back, "That's stunning, Lily. You're incredibly talented. And yes, I think that's exactly what we are, pieces that belong together but got lost. I'm looking forward to closing that gap. Sleep well, sweetheart." Sweetheart. The endearment slipped out naturally and I didn't take it back. I fell asleep that night thinking about puzzle pieces and second chances and the strange mercy of having something beautiful emerge from something so ugly. The next morning, Wednesday, I woke to my phone ringing. 6:30 a.m. Rosa's number. "They're moving faster than expected," she said without preamble. "Madison's arraignment is this afternoon at 2 p.m. They're not granting bail. She's a flight risk with connections in multiple states. But Simone, Elijah's attorney, is requesting a meeting. With you. Today, if possible." My stomach dropped. Why? He wants to discuss a plea arrangement. Apparently, Elijah is willing to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for your agreement not to pursue maximum sentencing recommendations. His attorney thinks if you're willing to show mercy, the prosecutor might go easier on him. What do you think I should do? Rosa was quiet for a moment. That's not my call to make. This is about what you need for closure. Do you need to see him punished? Or do you need something else? I thought about the little boy in the photographs. The teenager who'd cried at his father's funeral, the young man who'd promised to always take care of me. And then I thought about the man who'd stood in my living room 3 days ago and blamed me for his own financial irresponsibility, who'd let his wife call me desperate and pathetic, who'd plotted to have me declared insane so he could steal what was left of my money. I don't know, I admitted. Can I think about it? You have until noon. That's when the meeting's scheduled at Chen's office with your permission. Chen will be there, I'll be there, Morrison will be on standby. You won't be alone with Elijah. But if you can't do it, if seeing him is too much, just say the word and we cancel. After Rosa hung up, I sat in bed for a long time, watching the sun rise through my bedroom window. Did I want to see my son? Did I want to hear whatever excuses or apologies he'd prepared?